Hello everyone. My name is Hee Park. I'm at the Kachun University. The title of my presentation is The Effect of Technology Enhanced PBL on Preserved Teachers' Attitude Toward and Concerns about Inclusive Education. So now I start my presentation. First, here is the introduction. UNESCO pointed out that inclusive education is a strategy and aimed at ensuring education for all by reducing barriers to participation for marginalized individuals and groups. Rooted in the principle that education is a fundamental human right which must be provided without discrimination, inclusive education emerged as a response to the exclusionary practice that separate certain learners from mainstream education. The effectiveness of inclusive education for students requiring special educational support is largely dependent on teachers, just as the overall quality of education is determined by the competence of educators. The quality of the inclusive education will naturally vary according to the skills and expertise of the teachers involved. The purpose of the study is following. The purpose of the study is to investigate the effect of technology-enhanced project-based learning on preserved teachers' attitude toward and concerns about inclusive education. The first, literature review, inclusive education. Despite various efforts to address issues of diversity and difference in the teacher's education across the diverse contexts, the knowledge base on these issues remain fragmented. One of the most significant gaps in evidence concerns the effectiveness of different teachers' education programs in preparing preserved teachers to address the increasing diversity of school population, particularly in terms of their impact on preserved teachers and practices. Inclusive education necessitates that all teachers are prepared to view different as an expected and integral aspect of classroom teaching, and this perspective is based on the premise that educational systems often harbor inherent bias, as they are primarily designed for the majority of students with separate provisions for some learners deemed a means to ensure access for all. So although inclusion is often framed within the broader context of the human rights movement, the successful placement of students with special needs in general education classroom largely depend on teachers' attitude. Teachers generally shows a preference for including students with physical, sensory, or medical conditions, as these students are perceived to be easier to teach and manage. The Huck and Mundia point that, in contrast, students with intellectual and multiple disabilities are often seen as more challenging and less likely to succeed in an inclusive setting. Additionally, teachers tend to be less tolerant of students who exhibit learning difficulties or maladaptive behaviors. And in addition, any change initiated, such as the development of inclusive schools, requires the systematic addressing of the perceived concerns of regular school educators. The study further emphasized that failing to address these concerns may lead to challenges in the implementation of such initiatives. So inclusive education is a field that requires problem solving through collaboration and interaction with the various related professionals. It is a practical setting where conflict and issues involving administrators, teachers, Parents and students with special educational needs and their peer must be addressed. Therefore, problem-based learning is proposed as a strategy for teacher education in this context. Here is the literature review regarding the PBL. PBL is a learning approach that emphasizes autonomous inquiry and collaborative learning centered around real-world problems. What is important in the process of instruction is that learners independently formulate hypotheses about the given problem and engage in a process of testing those hypotheses, learning on their own through this process. This PBL approach can be proposed as a new alternative to address the issues in teacher education program for inclusive education, dealing with real education problems. Son pointed out that the following as potential ways to promote inclusive education for preserved teachers. First, it should focus on resolving the learning and behavior issues related to the students with disabilities in inclusive education setting. Given this, a problem-oriented education program that addresses the practical challenges faced in educational environment would be a more suitable teacher education approach. Since PBL emphasized developing teachers' abilities to solve and respond to real-world problems encountered in educational context, it is considered approach for both special education teachers and general education teachers in inclusive education setting. In inclusive education settings, it is essential to solve problems through collaborative network and the active interaction between special education teachers, general education teachers, and various disability-related professionals. Third, in inclusive education, it is crucial to resolve various conflicts and problematic situations that may arise involving students with disabilities, students without disabilities, teachers, administrators, and parents. PBL-based teacher education emphasizes the practical applications of knowledge, overcoming the limitation of traditional lecture-based instruction, and addressing real issues in educational settings. Thus, it can serve as an effective new alternative teacher education system for inclusive education context. Here are research questions. This study aims to investigate the effect of technology-enhanced PBL on preserved teachers' attitude toward and concerns about inclusive education, and is driven by following research questions. First, what are the effects of technology-enhanced PBL on preserved teachers' attitude toward inclusive education? Second, what are the effects of a technology-enhanced PBL on preserved teachers' concerns about inclusive education and its sub-areas? Here's are the design of the study belong to the research methodology. This study is a quasi-experimental design using pre and post survey was employed to investigate the impact of technology-enhanced PBL on preserved teachers' attitude and concerns regarding inclusive education. The independent variables is the technology-enhanced PBL treatment. There are two dependent variables, teacher attitude and their concerns regarding inclusive education. Second, participant. 48 preserved teachers from a university located in a metropolitan city participate in the study. Among them, 27 students were enrolled in an introductory course on special education, which was designed based on PBL. The remaining students were not enrolled in the course. 13 male students and 35 female students. 28 juniors and 20 seniors. Most participants had little or no experience working with students with disabilities, evaluating students, creating an IEP, or using PBL-based method. Data collection and procedure. Data collection for the study consisted of pre and post survey in which Preservice teachers responded to questions related to their attitude toward inclusive education and concerns regarding inclusive education. Pre-survey were administered and at the beginning of the semester by professor prior to any instruction. Post-survey were administered at the end of the semester by an instructor who was not teaching the course. At the beginning of the semester, students were presented with a problem situation related to the inclusive education, and each student wrote down their solution to the problem. Later, throughout the semester, the students formed a small group of 3 or 4 members and then participated in a group discussion about issues related to inclusive education, such as TV news and newspaper articles. This provided an opportunity to share different perspectives. Additionally, students were exposed to information about various disabilities, not only through textbook, but also through inclusive education related websites and YouTube videos. They were also able to view interview videos of special education teachers and parents of students with disabilities, gaining insight into the experiences of those working closely with students with disabilities. Furthermore, a special education teacher who also worked as a secondary school teacher was invited to the classroom as a guest speaker, and she shared with the issues and challenges and process in the real school situation. And also, student has asked questions. They have interactions during the classroom. And here is a survey tool. The first one is a teacher attitude toward inclusive education scale, TAIS. In this study, Preservice teachers' attitude toward inclusive education were measured by TAIS with 10 items. They rated their level of agreement with a 5-point Likert scale. Example of the survey items is the education of children with emotional and behavior problems should be arranged in mainstream classroom with the provision of adequate support. The result shows a Cronbach alpha reliability of coefficient of 0.72. Second survey tool is a teacher concerns about inclusive education skills. These items has 21 items to measure their concerns about the integrated education in India, and then it was revised by researcher O, and then it shrink to the 15 items based on the factor analysis with the validation test. So the 15 items were used for the study. The participants rated their level of agreement from 1 to 5 with a 5-point Likert scale. The result shows the reliability is 0.80. For the data analysis, ANCOVA, the analysis of covariance was used, and the MANOVA was used. And then following up univariate ANOVA were conducted for the study. Here are the results. The first, effect of the technology in PBL on pre-service teachers' attitude toward inclusive education. The result of the ANCOVA shows a significant difference between groups in the amount of the change demonstrate in Preservice teachers' attitude toward inclusive education. The overall participant in the technology enhanced PBL group showed a greater change than participant in the control group. The table 1 and 2 shows the result of the statistics result. For the second research question, effect of the technology enhanced PBL on preserved teachers' concerns about inclusive education. The result of the ANCOVA shows a significant difference between two groups. And from the table 3 and stand 4, we can see that the participant in the technology enhanced PBL group shows greater changes in their concerns compared to participants in the control group. Specifically, the technology enhanced PBL group significantly decreased their concerns about inclusive education after the PBL activities. From table 5, from the table 6, the technology enhanced PBL group significantly decreased their concerns about inclusive education after the PBL activities. So, and also the MANOVA result shows that overall effect of treatment on the sub-area of the concerns about the inclusive education, especially in the 3 sub-areas. The first, concerns about the workload. Second, concerns about administrative and financial support. Third, concerns about education support. Each sub-area, the statistical result described in the table 6. Here are the conclusions. Originally, the purpose of this study was to investigate the effect of technology-enhanced PBL on preserved teachers' attitude toward and concerns about inclusive education. The first research question, which examined the effect of technology-enhanced PBL on preserved teachers' attitude toward inclusive education, yielded a statistically significant result. The study supported the hypothesis that preserved teachers participating in technology-enhanced PBL shows a more positive change in their attitude toward inclusive education than those who did not participate in technology-enhanced PBL. Kang pointed out that preserved early childhood teachers who experienced a PBL-based inclusive education class improved their confidence through problem solving and developed multiple viewpoints regarding inclusive education in school setting. Kelly, Clan, and Kim noted that multimedia components had a positive impact on the experience of using the PBL module in special education decision-making for preserved teachers. The research question related to change in preserved teachers' concerns about inclusive education yielded a statistically significant result. This means that preserved teachers participating in technology-enhanced PBL decreased their concerns about inclusive education more than those who did not participate in technology-enhanced PBL. Specifically, preserved teachers in this study shows a decrease in their concerns in the following area. First, concerns about workload. Second, concerns about administrative and financial support. And concerns about educational support. Park shows that preserved teachers' critical thinking and practices in special education classes using authentic problems improved significantly. This suggests that through technology-enhanced PBL activities, preserved teachers can improve their knowledge and skills through team discussion. Therefore, concerns about inclusive education may no longer be significant issues, as they can be addressed by tackling authentic problems with peers. Additionally, preserve teachers' emotional connection to teachers in problem situation, and the teachers' interview videos were effective in fostering a sense of ownership in learning to solve problems that felt personal to the teachers. Further studies shows following up with qualitative research focusing on changes in Preservice teachers' perceptions of inclusive education during the technology-enhanced PBL process. This would provide additional insight into how to effectively prepare Preservice teachers for the inclusive educations. Here is the references. Thank you for hearing my presentation. Thank you.